Well, this is still Spotlight with Messi on Capital Television, and that was just the political updates. And I hope you heard it from the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, where he said that Nigerians should prioritize love for country over financial gain. Well, let me again officially welcome you, because if you're just joining us, you're right on time. My guest just joined me in the studio to analyze the state of the economy, and he goes by the name Are Oladotun Hassan, who is the President, Yoruba Council Worldwide. Barrister, you're highly welcome. Good evening.
It's a pleasure to be on your program.
I hope I didn't know that your name. Apologies if I did.
Not at all.
Well, viewers, this is at the point where you are allowed to call us to join the conversation. Barrister, let me begin by asking, I believe you listened to the speech of Mr. President on the 64th Independence Anniversary.
Yes.
Yeah, but we're actually going to talk about the confab, where he said that that is an avenue where the Nigerian youth would have an in-depth dialogue with federal government. But before then, do you think the speech of Mr. President meets the needs of Nigerians?
Well, categorically speaking, we have to consider the state of affairs of the nation, considering the fact that we are having multiple crises, economic downturn, and an inherited bad state of economy from the previous administrations, which shows that there is a huge gap of that widening the gap of poverty than what it used to be. And Mr. President being trying to have an empathy in regards to what the state of the feelings of the citizens are. You know, these are not times for just over-bloated promises. You just have to key in into what you promised and how far those promises have been met. And the key indicators of the economy, yes, Mr. President addressed some salient issues as far as the economy is concerned in terms of our reserve, the balance of reserve he met, so was depleted. He was able to maintain that reserve with a bit above, I think about $3 billion above the 35 or 33 billions earlier before. And actually he mentioned the issue of agriculture, like purchasing 2,000 tractors. He mentioned the issue of national interest and the need for the citizens to be united, which are patriotic statements enough to galvanize the system. The essence of critical pains of the masses, where he was projecting the CNG conversion. To me, these are normal citizens' expectation. It's regardless of either the government promises renewed hope or not. Those are duties of government to provide for the citizens. But where the problems now lies is the fact that there are internal sabotage in the government, and that's why the government was yearning for reshuffling, noticing that there are a lot of gaps in terms of what the president was wanting to achieve. You know, when you have a crawling baby as your assistance, that's the kind of assistance Mr. President seems to have in some certain ministries. And that's why when Adenoga released the press statement that the president is going to be shuffling, as regards that some ministers cannot address the media, some are media shy, TV shy. Why would you be in such a position as a minister? You can't give us an update of what you're supposed to be. You as a minister, you are a quasi-president in your own department. So not grab system of just wanting to show off, which I can see some are more good at. But what we are looking at is the fact that real governance deal with how far are we addressing this issue of depleting economy as regards of the fuel. You know, the demigods around the cabals around the oil and gas sector is taking Mr. President sometimes even on one that's clog, which has been a real tug of war.
But how much
between the NNPC
do you think Mr. President have over the oil and gas industry, knowing fully well that the NNPC is no longer addressed as NNPC, but NNPCL, that's limited, like it's now a private firm. So how much more power?
We seem to forget some certain things. This is Africa, and power corrupt and absolute power corrupt. Absolutely, you cannot take out the heart from the body that is still alive. Everybody still work hand in hand.
But some persons who
this is a private institution
who agrees that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing so well have come to say that President Bola Tinubu has less or no say in the oil and gas industry.
No.
It's not a private thing.
No, it's not so. The regulatory agencies are still the NUP, the oil producing, the different sector. We have the Federal Ministry of Oil, Federal Ministry of Petroleum. It's still a regulatory agency.
Okay.
Irrespective of the fact that the NNPC is now a private entity that also regulates and also administer. The problem is that there have not been proper situation of the real duty of NNPC, because NNPC is still holding ground on its whole powers, and is yet to, if it were to be a fully private entity, it has nothing to be using the infrastructures of the government, because the NNPC building that is still the NNPC tower, that's where the NNPC CL is still using. So it's more or less that the government, the institution just inherited that structure, but we can't separate that off now. I don't want us to have that missing link that there is a separate body somewhere. No, the same format of what Mele Kyari was doing when it was NNPC was still what he's still perpetrating under the NNPCL. And that's why, times with that number, we have called for total auditing of the NNPC as an agency of government. Be rather from the NNPC and transformative stage to NNPCL, we need a total audit report. Mr. President has the same power of control, because the same power of control, that's what he has been able to authorize, that crude should be sold in Naira, because initially everything has been dollarized, that our currency, and it's one of the gaps that is affecting our currency. But be that as it may, Mr. President needs to wear a more hard fist to deal with the cabals within the oil and gas sector, because there is a lot of lacunas.
Cabals, yeah.
Yes, because that is the ATM some of all these demigods are using to perpetuate themselves in power. Because if you look at what NNPC is doing, it's just doing swap of our oil without the National Assembly or all of us being aware. Everything is more or less opaque. And we've called for total overhaul of that system. The NNPC, if you compare what is happening in Aramco in the Saudi, you can know how much of oil that is coming from the ground to the place of sales. But here we can't even account for the barrels of oil per day. We are just thrown into folk tale of what we are making, and we don't have a sure bet of our earnings. There is no profit. Why do you have to be selling a product at the same time the citizen will come back and pay through their nose, through subsidy? We really need subsidy once we have engineers that are petrochemical engineers that can have modular refineries in this country. Can their government, at least the outgoing government then, when the former vice president was projecting the inauguration of modular refinery, modular refinery would have solved half of our problem. It won't just be all of us waiting for Dangote to sell oil at 800 per liter to us. No, we don't need all that. The market needs to come down. We don't have to be paying out of planes to these oligarchs that have made more through the capitalist system we currently have. We don't have a system whereby the citizens' voice are given a priority, and that's the problem. Okay,
yeah, I love the end where you said the citizens' voice are given a priority. Now, Mr. President has said that there is going to be a 30-day confab where an in-depth dialogue will be made with Nigerian youth to address certain challenges or pressing challenges. But people have come out to say, what other confab is more important or more serious than the one which people has gone out to the street to exercise by protesting? Do you think there is need for confab? Do you think the government have been sincere enough, or do we just see this in a way whereby some persons would be, this will end up being a political confab where some persons will be bought over? Do you think there is a confab that is more important than that which happened recently, which is the August protest and that of October 1st protest?
Well, as a patriotic citizen and Nigerian, I'm not a pivot of public show off of protest stations. I run protests. I do protests too. But when protests lack some basic reasonability and all sense of reasoning to pick on real issues, not just fables of release of Nnamdi Kanu, attaching it to coup, attaching it to
but that of the August wasn't released.
No, maybe if you look at the 15 demands, you know, the demands were there. There are 15 demands. It was part of it. You have to recall those demands. But there are some certain critical demands that also are part of our general demand as citizens.
Okay.
Because perhaps all through the same period, we equally put up an engagement to the government and we propose over 58 demands. Out of our own demands, we raised the issue of the PIA, that petroleum industry bill that the government said the community should take 3%. We frowned at it. We said the community cannot produce oil, and you're giving them 3% of their production. Why don't you give it a 60-40? Give the community 40% of whatever they produce. It's their right. It's God-given right. It's not by the fact that our constitution is opaque and has exclusively made federal government to own your resources, even your doorstep resources, without you, that is the owner of that resources, gaining from it. We raise the issue of establishment of harmonized, digitalized INEC, that citizens must be able to vote anywhere they are, with a well-programmed system, whereby diaspora voting can as well be encouraged. And the system of our voting can be well simplified with one unified central security number. If it is going to be our BVN, let our BVN be central security number. We don't need NIN, BVN, and the card of your INEC, which are all separate codes. If you're using that one central BVN, two people cannot use two BVN. Do you know that? So why can't you now, conceptualize that as our digital number from birth to death? You'll be giving just one central number. Once you clock 18, you know that it's time for you to go and vote. Not that in the north, some 3 years old will be voting on election day, and the south, about 18 years old will only be allowed to be on the queue. That's always been the error. Not that maybe what election is, maybe the north is producing, not that they have the capacity of those numbers, but everybody is allowed to be on the queue, including toddlers, because there is no regulatory standard. So once these are fundamental demands. We had a dialogue with the IG of the police, and it was a live coverage event, and we presented all our demands. There could have been a better dialogue than that. Rather, do we have to now go? Do you know what that protest cost? Would that have amounted to us making a fundamental statement in this country, where in Kano people were killed, in Abuja where police stations were burned up, in Suleja almost 5 policemen were gunned down? So to what achievement would that have achieved? Or is it the flying of the Russian flag we want to call as part of our achievement?
But people, number one, people have the right to protest, and number two, there were certain demands.
There were limitations.
Yes, now, but one of the major demands that was made during the protest was Mr. President should return back subsidy. So yes, I understand that there are damages that happened, and of course some government properties we have vandalized and loss of life and all that. But okay, I feel like the federal government should have done better by at least preventing it in the first place. Now it's just like medicine after death. Why not? Do you think it was proper for the federal government to allow the protest take place?
The protest was more political in one way or the other. I'm coming. The citizens' poverty state were being weaponized by the politicians who slipperyly walked in between those lines.
And who are those who created this poverty?
But I'm coming. The same people that metamorphose the sponsorship of the protestations, it will interest you that it is more political in terms of how that protest itself was managed. And the same way.
But do you know Omoyele Sowore?
Yes.
You know Deji, the barrister. Yes, do you know him? Yes. But these people never hit themselves. They came out and said they are part of the organizers of the protest. So how come is it?
To me, do you know why I always frown at this set of guys? Because they tend to do this eat and run exercise of protest. You know, maybe you don't understand one thing. What's critical here is that Sowore is also a presidential candidate.
Yes.
It's not like he's an opposition. He has right to lead protest.
Okay.
But there is what is called youthful exuberance. You don't take every of your exuberance to the open. There is what is called decorum. In leadership, there is decorum. You don't make things look the way it looked, whereby at every instance you want to abuse. Yes. Let me say something.
Do you see it as an abuse? But don't forget that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has once led protests.
Well, I'm coming. If maybe you don't understand one thing. Countries that have gone into war were led into the war with symptoms of similar protests that we're having. Go to Kenya, go to even Libya. Everywhere things started like, we don't want leadership, we don't want this at the end of the day.
But don't you think they are avoidable? It can be avoided.
No, let me tell you one thing.
If the government looking at
the kind of characters that were all involved in the 2023 elections and the post-election crisis that we are currently bedeviled with. The ethnic crisis, the religious crisis, and political crisis. Immediately after the same election, people never still accepted they lost the election. The protestation of that culminated to the sponsoring of this protest, and that's why you saw the light of Obi, Atiku, and the light giving their blanket coverage and support for the protest. But when the protest was getting to the demand stage of dialogue, can't they project that dialogue on behalf of the people and open that table of dialogue with the president, and it must be covered live? They have the position. Then must they destroy the country out of the fact that we want to achieve something that is semblance of solution? No. I just gave you an instance that we made our own protestations too, but it was made via dialogue. We presented documents that were far-reaching with well-demanding grounds of demand, that there should be an established National Youth Development Commission, whereby we have a National Youth Rights Act. You know what National Youth Rights Act would have solved for us? We were talking about health, infrastructure. What you be demanding on the street, we'll get it on the table. So if Mr. President is now coming up with the confab as part of his trying to make sure that dialogue table is open, I think it's just a table for dialogue with the youth. That's just what that confab will represent. But what I want to advise Mr. President is that he must take it up from somewhere, that the earlier confab that was organized by the previous administration of President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan should be brought back for us to know what state is that confab report. Implementation of that confab report. Maybe once that confab report is also given a life, we can now predicate what the youth should also simplified before the Nigerian youth, so that there could be additional knowledge of what that confab report must have achieved, because that confab report demanded for more creation of state and restructuring, ensuring that the exclusive list, maybe these are the issues that we are not talking on the streets. The only issue we go to protest against is petroleum. Petroleum is the least of our challenge. If this country were to be balanced economically, I'm coming. If this country were to be balanced economically, whereby we have agriculture as a mainstay, we have this as a mainstay, the petroleum industry would have been dead, because when we would have gotten more power generation, if you have more power generation, we would have more electricity, electric vehicle. A lot of things would have, maybe you don't know, even in America today, they are shutting out carbon monoxide emission through utilization of electric vehicles. So if you are still thinking that one size fits all is the only place we can get our problems, so we'll just be deceiving ourselves, because those that have stolen our oil, stolen all the creeks and the oil wells, are not ready to release. Do you know how they got all this oil well? We're given as gift. Under the military, the civilian, majority of these people that hold oil well never bought some of this oil well. It was given as birthday gift and creek gift, and were shared among themselves. Even the people of Niger Delta or all other regions that own the oil, majority of them cannot boast of 30% of ownership of their own citizens owning part of those oil rigs. Majority might be owned by the Northerners, by the Easterner, doesn't matter. But once we have an audit of the oil and gas sector, and that's what I'm really after. It's not just selling the oil to us as 1,002. If we have an audit report of our oil, we should not be buying oil less than 50 naira per liter. 50 naira or 20 naira per liter. All right,
Barrister, our time is quite limited, but let me ask you, why did you agitate for no protest? I want to, if Obi, I'm curious to ask, if the president of Nigeria was His Excellency Peter Obi or Atiku or any other person, would you have agitated for no protest? Knowing the fact that Nigeria is in a very dire situation.
Let me tell you.
Before this government, we are buying fuel for about not up to 500 naira, but
that's 120, 168, 178.
Exactly. So now in this current administration, we are buying fuel for 1,000 plus, not just 1,000, and there is a rumor around the corner that the NNPC is about to increase because of the trying to analyze on how they refining and the rest of it. So which is to say, at the end of all these things, at the end of all this, an ordinary Nigeria, in few days to come, we might be buying PMS, that's fuel, for 1,500. So there are realities staring at us in the face to say that, oh, the country is hard, and now you agitated for no protest. So I'm just curious to ask, if you wasn't President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on the presidential office, would you have said there should be no protest? Looking at all that,
I will still maintain the same ground, because why? I'm a patriotic Nigerian, and I've seen what war look like. We have maybe because we are still not conscious of the fact that we are built around ethnic wars around ourselves. We don't love ourselves. The 2023 election have depicted that in a big bold screen for all of us to see.
Okay.
And for me, I'm an advocate of detailed and well-grounded dialogue. In dialogue, you have time to exhaust your arguments. You have time to query and get response.
There is a saying that say urgent or whatever request for urgent.
Let me tell you that urgency.
In the face of this hardship, these people are out there.
Let me tell you, I'm also part of this situation.
We are feeling this heat.
We are all feeling the heat together.
Now, when you look at the salary of an average Nigerian, you compare it with what the inflation rate is all about. A bag of rice is 100 and something thousand, and I bet you that there are people in this country that earns below 50,000. There are people in this country that earn just 70,000. So what is the fate of their survivor if you're saying that you would have still maintained your stand that there should be no protest? And
when I was starting my introduction, I made it clear that Mr. President was prepared to run a journey with crawling babies as supporting strikers to really hate his government. Because there's one thing for you to be determined to achieve one task, there's another thing for your disciples to be on the same page.
Okay.
A lot of people are transactional to wanting to see what they will gain from the government. And that has really affected the government in a whole big way. Knowing fully well, these are also being a recurrent decimal as far as our nation is concerned. Poverty, inflation rate have always crept in from one administration, from 1999 to date. We have never had rest for one day of us having a breathing life. But in terms of wanting to repair a demolished and a bastardly dead situation, it's not going to take the same manner that you think to raising up that destroyed economy will take a little bit of time. And that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not bootlicker to the government just to say, oh, the government, let's just part the government. I just raised some fundamental demands here. I've also raised some issues as far as the government is concerned, where I noticed that the government is not really working right, especially this of the oil and gas. I'm the first person to lead a protest for the removal of Mele Kyari. Go to the media, you see it there. I've queried times with that number that the more Mr. President keeps Mele Kyari in office, the more the monster becomes more monstrous against the citizen. Why do you have to keep somebody who have not been able to back life for the nation? Must you put everything on the premise of ethnic issue that some people will say, okay, because they want to remove him now, the entire north must come down? No. It's not. There are some certain issues that miss the height that we must tell ourselves. For the fact that I'm a Yoruba man, if I'm talking too much, they say because he's a Yoruba man, he should not condemn the Hausa man. I've equally raised fundamental issues that, in as much as this government is meeting this kind of bad state of affairs inherited from Buhari-led government, we cannot continue to blame the past. Let's rejig now. And fundamentally, that's why when I look at the policies of the government, the policies might not be felt all across the country because of the humongous poverty on ground.
Okay.
It's not like a drop of water in the midst of an ocean of poverty. So there is no way you can quench that taste of the citizen with those drops. We need a huge emergency situation. Emergency situation, and I told Mr. President before, it took this administration to open the border, whereby borders have been closed down for more than 5 years. We don't have food importation. And why we don't have food importation, there is a well crystallized agenda to kill the farmers in the farm through Boko Haram. So Mr. President is trying to wipe out the Boko Haram. Maybe you are not getting gist every day that we are already curtailing the excesses of the terrorists, which is an achievement for this government.
Okay.
We might not have seen everything as it's going, but go and ask our military men who are not sleeping every day because of all of us. That's the reason why people like us will tell ourselves that our situation is amenable. Let's tarry a while and let's focus and tell Mr. President what we actually want, not because we must go and destroy and paint the city red because of protests. You know what we lost in 2020 because of NSAS protest that was mismanaged by government, and the people that led the same protest, they asked the people, provide leadership to talk with the government. They say they don't have leadership. We are all alive to saw it then. The Aisha Yusufu of this world were not eager to lead the people before the government, before everything was taken over by hoodlums. Hoodlums are part of the society. Do you think the government will go and tell hoodlums to join you? There are this army of unemployed debris of criminals that we still have there. No government will go and tell the criminal to go and join the protest, because they will also make themselves and harm you automatically. Once you are marching, they equally want to see what to steal. Different intentions. So the mistake the protesters will always want to do is the fact that, when they now see those hoodlums, they say it's government. No, these are part of debris of society, because the government did not make those people. Those people were part of the chaos that the society have created, from family life to our society to our social life. And that's why we are demanding that there must be youth right acts. The Youth Right Act must protect the right of every youth, whereby you have your youth card. If government wants to give us anything, not just members of political party of the APC, let it go round. Let every citizen, okay, you want to give 10 billion youth intervention fund. It's not enough. I have just demanded that if president wants to solve our problem, we need 60% of the total budget of the country to address youth development.
You mean the youth?
Yes, youth development. Do you know what that would have solved? 60% of our budget. We don't need to buy more arms. Where if you train your youth, you don't need to spend more money in the defense, because those youth, if they are properly well engaged, what can save you as your pocket as far as this country is concerned now. I was talking to a friend. I said, do you know that for you to really earn a living in this country at the present state, you need $1,000 a month to survive you as a real family.
Okay.
Because averagely you don't spend less than 500 to $1 million a month in order to be able to standardly meet up real life. Because you collecting that 70, I'm not a supporter of 70,000 for the NLC, but we need to create a working economy, a well-grounded economy that is activated on economic revolution in area of agriculture, not just agri for private farmers, agri that you and I can subscribe for, and we know what our earnings are, what will now be the education sector. The federal government should invest more not less than 35% in the education sector. Not the loan. The loan is just part of our palliatives. It's our right. It's not any favor, because these are what we get in normal crime.
Okay.
Mr. President is just introducing all these things, but the problems are enormous on ground. If you want to now solve a problem with blame game, abusing the person that is even trying to come out of the rules, trying to make sure that they stabilize his economy. People stole the country tooth and nail. They stole it dry. Maybe because if the whole of the people that stole our money were being thrown on the media every day, there will be war.
All right, now let me add this. When we talk about the confab which Mr. President proposed, trust me, is a fantastic one, as long as it will not be turned into political interest. But tell me, what do you think this confab tend to achieve? To me,
I've just addressed I was talking with the Minister of Youth Development and some stakeholders, and I've made it understandably to them that, for this confab to succeed, it must be divided into phases. Resolution of states must be achieved to the region. If you don't discuss your problem at home, well, analyze that the problem in the southeast is different from the problem in the southwest.
Okay.
We don't have the same common problem. We only have common problem when it comes to poverty rate and poverty level. That's our equilibrium. But when it comes to ecological resuscitation of the southwest land, when we talk about the east-west road, when we talk about what their demands are, it's different from our own Binyore road. It's different from our own infrastructure, our own immediate community for water. It's different from infrastructural development of housing. So everybody has different problem. Then it talked, I regularly addressed some certain fundamentals. As part of my demand to the, as the confab is coming, there's an ongoing review of the 1999 Constitution.
Okay.
For me, I've submitted over 7 bills to the National Assembly. Bill to abolish the Land Use Act is there. That the Land Use Act is a militarized law to steal people's and community land. Governor cannot just be issuing certificate of occupancy over land that it is not purchased from the community, from rightful owners of families that own those land. You don't just come as a sitting governor because you're authorized by Land Use Act. You use the fiat of allocation to steal people's land and say their land is under acquisition. Acquisition for what? Is there no king in that community that must have consenting authority? I have demanded for that. I demanded for the establishment of Federal Ministry of Traditional Affairs and of Chieftaincy and Traditional Affairs to regulate our traditional institutions.
Okay.
That institution is the closest to the people. If government want to distribute palliatives, let them work with the traditional institutions that people earlier respect in their immediate community, not one political sellout who just take all those things and convert to his own private sales in our white shops.
Okay.
So we need a well-audited system. We want this country to be audited. We want our audit report of the past from 1999 today. Let them provide us audit report, not budgets.
Okay.
So there are some certain issues that the confab should be ready to address. If they have reached resolutions from the regional level, then Mr. President, after 2 weeks, can now reconvey that selected leaders from the geopolitical zones, respected voices, stakeholders come together and look at the mid policy document, the SDG goals, the confab of the Jonathan document, the 1963 Constitution. We look at all these documents. We've been sitting where we have the brains. We have proposed different solutions from different successive governments. This government should be able to harmonize those laws together. Give us a new people's constitution.
Okay.
Once we let out this military, maybe, are you aware that our constitution is still a military owned? We don't have a constitution that is being made by the President National Assembly. Whatever they are reviewing, and that's why I call for that's why I call that Mr. President, before the amendment first, should have issued a fiat abrogating the decree that one of the Abu Salami Act decree that established the 1999 Constitution. It should have used its presidential fiat.
Okay.
Not even the National Assembly now. First of all, cancelling that, now writing the National Assembly to now set up for a new production of new people's constitution, or either review or production of a new constitution. So for me, the more our problems are situated and rigged in ethnic, social, political, and religion, the need for all of us to look at the humanity face of our challenge.
But Barrister, sorry to cut you short, but you know we have one particular problem in this country when it comes to constitutions and law. It's not about the constitution, it's about the implementation. Because, you know, I have some friends and siblings who are the present core members, and up to now they're saying that even the 77,000 naira new money that was approved by President Bola Tinubu to be paid to core members, that up to now they were still receiving, is it 33,000 or 30,000? So if you look at it, it's not about talking about laws, constitution, it's about the implementation. What happens to the implementation?
It's easier to implement new fuel price within 2 seconds.
Exactly. So how do we do with that aspect of implementing laws?
Because of the lackadaisical system. It's the institution we have all been used to. We just believe that everything goes in this country. Go to the civil servant today now. For you to get anything from them, you must pay through your nose. Our system is corrupt. Not the people in the glass house of the presidency alone. But we are not saying that because we are corrupt, that we should not die corrupt. We must learn to clean the urgent text. And that's why I want to advise that in as much as the government is trying to project a system whereby we should come out and giving us a blank check.
Okay.
To me, I've just told Mr. President I'm ready to lead voices to that dialogue. All these our demands that I've raised now is until when we raise it and we have a heap of our demand, then we now submit. Mr. President has given his voice. Just like somebody asked for the head of John the Baptist. They asked, what did you expect me to do for you? Meaning you have already given before the person asks. Mr. President have given to us. It's not for all of us not to begin to condemn that which you have been given, because previous administration never gave you the opportunity. Now an opportunity is given. I expect you leaders across the country, people like Sowore, Ayesha Yusufu, Dejade Yaju, I'm coming, should all come together now. Those demands you've been raising on decks to decks and all those places and beating drum, you must be the first person to go and take a seat number.
All right, Barrister, before I would want you to, say this in just few seconds, because our time is quite limited. Sowore was with me on the same show about 2 days ago, and he talked about the state of the economy, the hardship, the untold, the debt situation and the untold hardship. And he said something that Nigerian has reached a breaking point, and with all that we are experiencing, we can see that Nigeria is really in a very, very, very tight situation. And he said one thing. He said that if care is not taken, they might be called for revolution. Are you worried about that? Please, a few minutes.
I'm not an advocate of. I'm not on the same page with you. I'm very optimistic.
Well, are you worried that something like that might happen? We
will not snowball into that crescendo that Sowore is advocating for.
Okay.
We will not even get to that level. And I don't pray Sowore families in America comes here to witness such. Because it's easier for you to profess evil. But if that evil happens, will you be able to cater for the people? You already have your visa. You take the next available flight out of this country. And yet you have set the country ablaze. When the 10 days protests were going on, Sowore was doing virtual protests with the people here. And people died on the streets. I've led protest myself. I'm an advocate of protest for positive change. Let all of us come to a round table with the government. And that's what I want to tell Sowore, Dejade Yaju. Let all of us meet in that hall. Let's make common demands. Within 30 days, let's make common demand. Let's declare that 30 days of constructive engagement. Let's begin to fire in all our demands. Let's make all our demands. So far the president say he's going to implement. After the 30 days, we all sit and wait for the implementation and sit on the government neck.
Are you how sure are you about that?
We all demand. That is where the protest will not be mother of all protests. because you.
So are you saying that you will lead a protest?
I will lead that protest
after
there.
this conflict,
Yeah, definitely.
And the needs we are not met. You will lead a protest, barrister.
I will lead the protest.
Of course, I will hold you to your words.
Definitely, let's leave it to that level. I will lead the protest because I have laid out time.
I'm definitely going to call you and say
we will be there together. We will make our demands together. Looking at the. Have you considered some of the demands that put on the table? Are they not generous enough for our solution?
They are fantastic, but the problem is
let us go and put it down.
They are fantastic, but the problem is the government.
It is
meeting up with those
needs. Let me tell you, we have more time to refix the country when we get to that hall for that confab together.
All right, thank you very much, Barrister, for coming. And for those calling, I am so sorry. Our time is already fast spent, and we've come to the end of the show. But trust me, some other time, I believe you will be lucky to join the conversation. At this point, Barrister, let me thank you again for coming and sharing your thoughts. This is where we draw the curtain for today's episode on Spotlight with Mercy. And before I go, let me say this to the federal government and Mr. President precisely. You made a lot of promises to Nigeria before you took the office, and Nigerians are holding you so dear to your words, and I hope that you listen to the plight of these people who has voted you into that office. And until I come your way some other time, keep watching Kaftan Television. I am Mercy Emily. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye.